Greetings, programs. This is Wretch, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Parliament of Knives. And in the last chapter, guys, we were able to throw the sheriff off of our scent. But unfortunately, our curiosity got the better of us, and we headed to Vivian's haven, along with Sheriff Key, to kind of figure out what happened, because we had a Malkavian vision saying that something bad was going down. And when we went to her haven, we found a good portion of the staff were dead, seemed to be by suicide, and the Ventru Primogen was actually staked on a cross. And when we were able to, or not, but basically crucified and wrapped in barbed wire, not necessarily on a cross. But when we were able to get her down and remove the stake and knock her out of torpor, she had no memory, really, of anything except the last person she apparently saw, which is our lovely sire. So that's going to be very interesting to see. So now we are in chapter 4, Council. This is unheard of, Corliss. Such a thing would never have happened under Arendel's watch. Alicia Gray stalks a thin aisle between the seats of the council chamber's front row and a lectern behind which the seneschal glowers at her silently. The Toreador Primogen was the last to arrive, and from her golden hair's perfect curls and the immaculate makeup, it's evident even to the least observant Kindred that her tardiness was, as usual, an exercise in vanity. Her voice carries throughout the chamber, cutting like a knife as it rebounds with perfect acoustics to each and every ear present. There are 32 such ears in total, 2 for each powerful council member, with the unusual addition of Jordan and yourself. That volume down just a little bit. Okay. The card gets to his feet, glaring at Alicia as he straightens a lifelike mask of a dignified middle-aged man to properly align to his true facial features hidden beneath. Only his eyes show through the delicately carved holes in the mask's too perfect face, and they're bloodshot with what you can only imagine is fury.
This is not the time for self-promotion,
the Nosferatu says with a barely suppressed growl.
It doesn't matter whose watch this happened under, only that we get to the bottom of it and execute the guilty. Imagine if this crime goes unpunished, if every neonate in the city believes that their Primogen are easy meat.
He doubles over as a gut-wrenching gurgle cuts off his speech. Take the mask off, Mikhail, Alicia says, her lips curled in a discreet smile. It's hard enough for you to speak without it. We all know what you look like. There's no need to be shy.
The same can be said of you, slag, Picard gurgles. That painted face belongs in one of your disease-infested dollhouses, not a council of your peers.
Cease this infantile bickering at once, Corliss says, without rising from her seat. Her voice is icy cold. We're not here to posture. Alicia sniffs. She knows better than most that facts often play second fiddles to politics. Everyone in the room knows, even if they would never admit such a thing out loud. I watch closely, intent to learn ways to get under each of their skins and manipulate them for my gain. Hey, some dude. Key stands up by Corliss's right, face locked in a scowl. Enough of this. For over a week our prince has been missing, and now the last of us to see him has been attacked in her home, staked, driven to dementia. If this doesn't cause you to feel alarmed, then I suggest you pack your bags tonight and leave the city. The assembled Kindred murmured disapprovingly. No one is above suspicion. He continues undeterred. I'll be speaking to each of you privately when this council is concluded. Ooh. This is a farce, Sheriff. A deep voice calls out from the other side of the room. The speaker stands. He's dressed eccentrically in flowing blood-red ceremonial robes, and his face is pinched like he just caught a whiff of a terrible smell. Jordan leans close and whispers in your ear. Someone likes to get dressed up. Leave it to the last Tremere in Ottawa to draw attention to himself for no good reason. farce, Lang? He raises an eyebrow. Does something about this situation amuse you? Well, the fact that you suggest we blame members of our own esteemed council is the issue, Lang says. Ottawa is newly besieged by a revived Anarch presence led by a renegade you know to have a history with our departed prince, and yet you have us biting at each other's heels, fighting amongst ourselves while the clear enemy gathers strength from our weaknesses. His eyes wander the chamber, eventually lighting on you. Silas had a close encounter with the Bruja Robert Ward. I'm informed that the Anarch took particular interest in him. Tell me, as one so recently assaulted by that rabid dog, where do you believe our good sheriff should turn his gaze? You swallow your nerves as 14 powerful kindred turn to watch you intently. You try not to dwell on how many collected centuries they've existed and how any of them could destroy you with relative ease. Oh, man. Ooh. I think this one's probably the best.
I think blame can be easily narrowed down. Miss Mare's mind was tampered with. Only certain powerful kindred have such abilities. A Bruja like Ward wouldn't be able to cause that much damage.
Well pointed out, Silas. Such abilities only run in the bloodlines of certain clans. I could no sooner dominate a mind than stare directly into the sun. The response comes not from Lang, but from Kashif, the Banu Hakim Vizier you received for Corliss 2 nights prior. Lang would have us forget that it was not only the Bruja who left this city with souls harboring disdain for Arundel. The Tremere were furious when the prince extended his hospitality to my clan, and now only one of the warlocks remains here. A token of anger, a festering boil who wants to see the broken clan regain their lost honor. It is easy to look upon the outsiders with hate in our hearts, but it is injustice to punish them without determining proof of their guilt. He shifts toward Key. Is that not so, Sheriff? He chooses his words carefully, taking his time. There is little benefit to punishing a guiltless party. We all have an interest in prolonging our own existence. Vivian Mare was found not only staked, but bound to a crucifix with barbed wire. Okay, so there was a cross. Her servants were poisoned, and her butler was cut open with ruthless precision. I would like to believe that if I were to find any of you in such a position, that you would want me to leave no stone unturned during the investigation. Everyone will be answering questions regarding their whereabouts. No exceptions.
We could do no less, Sheriff.
A voice rises with crisp clarity over the din of muttered bickering.
Any loyal kindred should be prepared to answer your questions and aid the investigation.
It's Ophelia, a Primogen of Clan Malkavian.
As you say, Vivian was the last of us to speak with Arundel. The sooner we can resolve this little dilemma, the faster we can move on and put a rest to these boorish rumors about our prince.
She inclines her head in Key's direction.
I'll speak with you as soon as the meeting is adjourned.
Well, perhaps it is for the best, Kashif says in agreement from his seat beside Ophelia. The sheriff is only doing what he needs to do.
That's strange, Jordan whispers. Why would she volunteer herself? Answering questions about their comings and goings is usually the last thing any of the council wants to do. Everything's a secret to these people. She's got to be playing an angle.
Key returns Ophelia's nod respectfully. Well, we'll discuss the particulars in a moment. For now, I'd like to speak with Vivian while we have everyone assembled. All eyes to Vivian. Vivian Mare walks hesitantly to the front of the room at the sheriff's request. Her shoulders are wrapped tightly in a white lace shawl, and she carries herself with cold self-assurance. It's hardly the level of composure you'd expect from a woman so recently crucified. but it is quintessential Vivian. Miss Mare, Key says, tell us. Corliss waves him aside. You looking well, Vivian? She says, examining the recently assaulted Kindred up and down with a disapproving frown. That legendary composure we know and admire. It's hardly indicative of forgetting oneself. The fog has mostly faded from my mind, Vivian replies with stony calm. Even as Kindred, there's a certain degree of dismay incurred by having one's home invaded, being overpowered and staked through the heart. I lost almost enough blood to sink into torpor, even. One might think you'd show a degree of understanding. She smiles, emphasizing her words to make her sarcasm more obvious. She expects no sympathy, nor does she require it. Wallowing our own empathy won't apprehend your attacker, Corliss says. Tell us what happened. Vivian's eyes go vacant for a moment, and it seems like she's looking inward, searching for a lost truth. There was a crash from the front door. My butler, Robert, was yelling. I left my study and walked to the top of the stairs, intending to make an example of whoever dared to interrupt me. Then someone came from behind. Powerful. Corliss leans forward. Who was it? A name? A sense? A smell? Anything? The Primogen shakes her head, her normally placid face wrinkled with sudden anxiety. Nothing, she says. Just a feeling of helplessness I haven't experienced since I was a neonate. The next thing I can remember is coming out of a haze, feeding on the sheriff's mortal. Jordan nudges you. She hasn't mentioned how I found her, she whispers, her memory lost from before the assault. Do you think I should say something? Ooh. Okay, so... what do you guys think we should do? We can have Jordan call it out. We can basically say, let her omit it, and we can be questioned later. Corliss needs to know the truth, or she won't be able to defend herself, or it's possible she wants to tell Corliss about it in private. That can go either way, really. Messi says call out the bluff. I think that one might be a little too bold. Amaranth says the last option. I think the last option's probably the best.
It's possible she wants to tell Corliss about it in private. That kind of thing could cause great embarrassment to a Primogen in front of the council, and it'd be insulting to bring it up.
Oh, Jordan says. I hadn't even thought of that. So you think she might be keeping that to tell Corliss after the meeting?
Well, Key already knows because you told him, you say. So it makes sense that she'd have to admit it at some point. You know how things work with the older Kindred. It's all posturing. She doesn't want to lose face in front of the other Primogen.
Corliss leans forward, eyes watching Vivian for any tell or facial tic. So you remember nothing about being crucified, staked. It seems unlikely that such memories could be easily wiped out even by the most gifted of us, Kindred or Anarch regardless. Vivian shakes her head. The skin around her upper lip wrinkles as if she wants to snarl. You've never seen her this upset, but she's composed herself well, or at least that's the emotion she intends to exhibit. Your sire frowns. I'll review my files to discover which known kindred within the surrounding cities would have both the power and the inclination to do such a thing. The list will be small, and those on it might well be untouchable. She looks over at Key. You have your work cut out for you, and you have my resources at your full disposal. In the meantime, I want a full investigation into any and all Anarch activity within the city and anywhere on the outskirts. Tell your officers whatever you want. I don't care if we have to suggest the possibility of a terrorist attack. Ward and his rabble must be found and dealt with. She eyes the other kindred, but none of them speak up. This council is dismissed. Lang gives an approving nod from the other side of the room, a smug smile plastered on his face. As the council members get up to leave, Key raises his voice over the murmuring crowd. Pardon the inconvenience, but please don't leave the building just yet. Each member of the council will have a short exit interview so I can collect a statement. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated. The more we work together, the sooner Miss Mare's attacker will be found and brought to justice. For a moment, it looks like a few may plan to leave anyway. But as he leads the more vocal dissidents, Picard follows, hand freezing on the handle of the chamber door.
Damn it all. What's a few moments of lost time to our centuries? To hell with it. I want that bastard caught too.
It looks like you'll be here for a while. You have the unusual opportunity to speak with any of these high-profile kindred you wish, so long as they're receptive to your advances. At the other end of the chamber, Luca appears from a door to Corliss's right and whispers something in her ear. Maybe she has some new information? You haven't had much time to talk to your sister since she returned to Ottawa, but then again, there are significantly more powerful vampires here tonight who might be worthwhile to curry favor with or seek knowledge from. I can speak to Corliss anytime. So I do like this one. Ophelia and Kashif have some very strong feelings about the meeting tonight. The thing is about Kashif being a Banu Hakim, him having that much say in a council is actually quite interesting. So I think we're going to ignore the Tremere for right now. That may be at our peril, but if we can choose with multiple people, I want to talk to Ophelia and Kashif, and then maybe talk to Picard. The old horror star is on the rise, and if we move up, we could become Primogen and take over his position. So, Ophelia and Kashif first, though. You find the unlikely pair seated in the corner of the meeting room. Kashif nursing his wine glass, savoring the blood as he sips it through parched lips. He's wearing the same long robe as the last time you saw him in Corliss's office, only now it's slightly stained on the right arm. Blood dried and scrubbed, but its nature hidden from mortal senses, but not your own. He looks tired, drained, like he's in the middle of the longest night of his unlife. Ophelia looks up at you, piercing eyes staring through long blonde hair. I hope your sire enjoys your conversation with the good sheriff as much as I did, she says witheringly. He may mean well, but he asks more questions than most kindred would be comfortable with. Kashif places an empty glass on the nearby side table before replacing it with a full one. What is it that we can do for you, Mr. Moore? Oh, man. I don't want to ask him about the Banu Hakim. I figured that's a bit rude. It kind of like if we offer his hand, that might seem as insulting. We could always address Ophelia and say about trying to smooth over things between her and Corliss. What do you guys think? It's basically a toss-up between the The top two. Offer the hand because it'd be rude to blow him off. Yeah, that's true. He did ask what it is that we could do for him. I address Kashif.
We never had the opportunity to greet properly.
I offer my hand.
Welcome to Ottawa.
Kashif holds out his hand and inclines his head with a slight bow. My thanks, Mr. Moore. Your welcome is well received. Ophelia frowns. Has your sire given any further consideration to Kashif's request? Fee, Kashif says. I shouldn't concern Silas with my personal troubles. Ophelia shakes off his hand. It should be said, Kashif.
What needs to be said?
You ask. That the prince's will must still be done until his return, Ophelia says. Kashif needs Arendel's help. He's been threatened for weeks, and now he's been assaulted. Kashif's eyes flick to Corliss on the other side of the room. It's gotten worse since I last spoke to your sire. I've been attacked in my own home during the daylight. The mortals knew when I would be awake to pray. If they'd come for me in my sleep, but perhaps their master wished to send a message. They did not expect God to protect me. They have learned otherwise. Fortunately, the attackers did not kill my guards, they only knocked them unconscious. He gestures to an empty chair beside him, and you sit. The news is disturbing. Maybe Corliss should be told.
How did mortals break into your haven? Do you have defenses in place?
Well, he said he has guards, so... No, that's a stupid question about how did mortals break in.
I can pass a message on to Corliss if you'd like me to, but I can't guarantee she'll listen.
When you have the opportunity, Kashif says. I've been looking at other avenues to deal with the situation.
Oh?
You ask, curious. I've been speaking with the sheriff, and I've also looked into arrangements to make a temporary haven south of the border in Buffalo. The Camarilla there have been quite welcoming. I would, of course, return to Ottawa once the matter is resolved. You wouldn't have to consider leaving if you waited for Arendel's return, Ophelia says. Ophelia believes that nothing is amiss, Kashif says, that Arendelle is still here, watching us. I dearly hope that she is right. Have some faith, Kashif, Ophelia says with a patient smile. There's nothing to be gained by jumping to conclusions. Kashif spreads his hand. Who am I to tell otherwise until we have proof? Let's see.
Well, maybe Ophelia's right. I'd much rather this be an unannounced vacation than a true disappearance.
Kashif shakes his head and replies to you. I have seen entire cities razed to the ground while both mortals and kindred did nothing but posture and play games. Such things should be absurd, but my experience tells me otherwise. This eternal struggle we weave is an elaborate game, Silas. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. I thought things would be different here in the Americas. And things are different, don't misunderstand me. But the worst elements of our culture remain unchanged when one peers past the window dressing.
Do you think you'll ever be able to return home? Do you miss it?
My soul yearns for Alamut, Kashif says, but I also know that I'll see it again someday.
Well, how can you know? Is there a plan?
God has a plan for us all, Silas. Even we damned have a place in his design. I know that I will see my home again because I can feel God's righteous anger. He will smite the pretender Urshagi, and we shall be the instruments of his divine retribution. For now we gather strength and allies. We are ageless. I can afford to be patient as we plan our return. Our belief in justice has been tested, but we also believe in a chain of command. I've noticed that many young Camarilla appear to worship their elders as gods. He nods toward Corliss on the other side of the room. Would you cry out to your sire were you to find yourself in dire peril? Would you do everything in your power to keep her safe? And more importantly, is her word your law? He's fishing for something. His question has the feel of a test. You hesitate for a moment before giving your answer. Yowza. I think the third option is probably going to be the best one. I respect Corliss and follow her commands, but she is no god. We don't want to give off the fact that we are, kind of gathering stuff right now. You know what I mean? I don't want to do the whole instrument of her will and the whole I owe her nothing. What do you guys think? Got our own little Primogen council in the chat right now, I'd like to think. Seems the best fit.
I respect Corliss and follow her commands, but she's no god.
A wise answer, Kashif replies. There's far too much chaos in our world as it is without children respecting their sires. Despite his positive response, he looks vaguely disappointed. Ophelia puts her hand gently on the vizier's arm and looks up at you. Would you excuse us for a moment, Silas? I need to have a private conversation.
Of course,
you reply. There's no point in offending them at this point, although the abruptness of the dismissal stings.
The two of you have a good evening.
We should speak again, Banu Hakim offers. Good evening, Mr. Mo. I guess we actually needed to come off as more abrasive, which surprises me. The entry door to the meeting hall bursts open, emitting, you know what, let me look at stats here. Reputation. Jordan 52, Gerard 55. He's at 49, which is nice. Corliss is at 52. Sheaf is at 40. Ophelia's at 27. We're making some gains, probably not as fast as we'd like, but it's working. And we also need to eat because we have been using our powers. The entry door to the meeting hall bursts open, admitting 3 heavily muscled men in black suits leading a small group of humans, sedated by the looks of it. You hear a nearby voice make a joke about ordering room service. One of the men adjusts his collar uncomfortably. Courtesy of the sheriff. In appreciation for your patience, Key calls out from the side room where he's interviewing the attendees one by one. You look back and forth between the sheriff and his mortal offerings with momentary confusion. It strikes you as unusual. Is Key trying to prove something to the Primogen? A show of power? At least it seems to have calmed down some of the anger in the room already. Maybe that was the goal, but either way, it's an extravagant gift. Drawn by a hunger that's never truly sated, you approach the shambling meal along with the others, each pairing off with a victim before breaking away. When you grab hold of yours, however, her eyes widen with terror and she attempts to pull away. Her lips tremble. "Please," she stutters. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know." She's struggling to get the words out. Whatever keys men used to drug her clearly isn't working as well as it did on the others. Her dark curled hair is slick with the sweat pooling on her forehead. I can pay you whatever you want, just don't make me forget again. I don't even know how many times I've done this. Many times. I think I'm going insane." Well, we have shown our cruelty on more than a few occasions when it comes to humans, so I don't really care much what my food has to say. I pull her head aside and shut her up by drinking my fill. Boop. It's almost amusing, really. A mortal blubbering on about how she's being used, as if that isn't their place in the natural order of things. You sink your fangs into her neck and drink deep, savoring the blood's sweet taste. You can't be certain, but you believe the woman is high society. If not, then she's been well kept and comfortable. You feel an immediate relief as you slake your thirst before removing your fangs from her neck, licking the wound closed with a quick swipe of your tongue. It's almost second nature to you now. The well-dressed thugs take her from you and she follows them without a word, her legs unsteady, a slight smile plastered on her face. There's no sign of the scared woman you'd seen just a minute before, only the glossy eyes of Chattel. You hear Key call out for another interviewee from the side room. Interviewee. It looks like you'll be here for a while yet. Let's talk with our Primogen.
"Ah, Silas," the card greets you. "Don't let your sire know that my backing of her methods was not intended to be gauche. I just genuinely cannot stand Miss Grey, and hatred runs deep with one as old as I am."
He's still wearing the mask of a middle-aged mortal over his grotesque features. It's fairly unusual for another sewer rat to disguise their disfigurement, though you'd seen him in a mask once before. Does he expect you to cover up your twisted fingers as well? For a moment you worry that you might have committed a political gaffe, or gaffa.
"It seems that Key is enjoying his little display, grandstanding in front of the Primogen Council as if any of us could wipe the floor with him single-handedly."
Ooh. Yeah, I do too. So I was about to click on that actually.
Well, I don't think he's grandstanding. He's just doing what needs to be done. This is a serious issue. "Bah!" the card grunts. "What would you know, boy?"
He motions you over to a table away from the exit and you sit behind him.
"I noticed you looking at my mask. I was hoping to display some civility at such an unusual gathering, but leave it to Alicia to attack me for trying to be polite. My face is made for the sewers. That and scaring the hell out of anyone who crosses me before I kill them. Does it do me a disservice? My talents don't lend themselves to this high society nonsense."
Able to see the mask closer now, you can tell it's extremely finely painted with an eye for detail. Delicate and stately. Masterwork. And one of a kind. But does that mean he should be wearing it to a meeting of powerful kindred? Hmm.
Well, I assume the mask could impress some, but have the opposite effect on others.
Yeah. It could be kind of condescending, couldn't it? It's like we're telling an ancient kindred, like, hey, this is how it's done. I think we'll just be honest, answer his question honestly.
Well, I think it's unnecessary. You shouldn't need to hide your face in a meeting of kindred. Be proud of who you are. Pride is for weak-willed neonates who haven't lived long enough to realize that nobody cares about what you think of yourself, the card says. But perhaps you're right. I don't think I'll wear this again. It looks better when hung in my office anyway. But you didn't speak with me to ask about my affectations. What is it you want?
I actually do want to ask this.
Well, I wanted to ask you about Ottawa's sewer system and how it interconnects with nearby cities. I'm told you know every twist and turn below our feet.
Picard laughs, and surprisingly, you don't detect any malice behind it.
If only all kindred were as straightforward. Is your enthusiasm refreshing? Perhaps we could find a mutually beneficial arrangement. Visit me in my haven later this week, as we'll discuss what you can offer me in exchange for my tutelage.
He clears his throat. It's a decisively unappetizing sound.
And what do you think of those two?
He points to Kashif and Ophelia, where they're sitting together in a nearby corner.
An Assamite and a lunatic playing house together. I'm not much of a political animal, but even I find the relationship intriguing. Did you know that they're sleeping together?
He shakes his head.
Not in a carnal sense. At least I don't believe so. But it's unusual nonetheless.
So we wouldn't have this option if we hadn't spoke with them before. Did their relationship come off as genuine? I'm kind of going back and forth between whether I would consider this. Yeah, it could be legit because they weren't like holding hands or anything in front of the other Primogen or such. I like that. I think the ticking time bomb is pretty apropos, but that's just whenever you mention a Malkavian.
I spoke with him earlier, and I believe their relationship is most likely genuine.
Picard shakes his head.
Well, she's convincing, I'll give that to her. It's hardly your fault falling for it. The woman is as mad as the sun is deadly. Arendel's good friend, Kashif, will be in for the surprise of his life when she finally turns on him. Well, can you be sure she'll turn?
You ask before thinking better of it.
She's a strange one,
Picard says.
Watching her work a room from afar makes it blatantly obvious that she doesn't believe a word anyone else says.
He points at his twisted lips.
It's behind the smile. You could tell her that fire is bad for her health, and she responds by waxing philosophical about the regenerative properties of the flames. Make it up on the spot, and you'd swear she believes every word of what she's saying. What do you think she's looking to get out of Kashif by pretending to care about him? Why would any power-hungry kindred latch onto something unique and powerful? Isn't it obvious? The list is very short. Social status, insights into the assassin's unique blood rituals, anything she can use to get a leg up on the competition. Can she even use blood rituals?
You ask? You're pretty sure the answer is no. The card shrugs.
I've seen stranger things in my centuries, boy. I once saw a Brujah flesh craft himself a new face. An unlikely thing, that. They're all unlikely things in our own ways. Nothing is a certainty. Can the Malkavian use magic? Unlikely. But what if the assassin could teach her somehow? That could be the very question she's trying to answer at the moment. Now, I'm afraid I must say good evening to you. I believe our puffed-up sheriff is gesturing to me.
He waves a boil-pocked hand in Key's direction before pushing his chair back and stalking over for his interview. You remain seated for several minutes before finally shaking off a sudden bout of melancholy. You should be about your business. Noticing that you're finally alone, Alicia Gray sashays to in your direction. The diva's eyes meet your own, and for a moment you're lost in her radiance. The spell, however, is rather diminished when she nearly trips over Lang's briefcase. She recovers with her usual grace, pushing her perfect hair out of her eyes with an elegant sweep of the wrist while summarily ignoring the warlock's baleful glower as he snatches the case closer to his person. "Clumsy of me," she says with a melodious laugh that reminds you of a light wind brushing against wind chimes. "You've been quite the social butterfly tonight, Silas. Angling for a more prominent position?"
It never hurts to get to know the competition,
I say with a wink. "A man after my own heart." She plays her fingers along the plunging neckline of her dress, and you do your best to ignore it. "I wanted to invite you to my latest exhibit tomorrow evening. I know that there's a distinct lack of notice on my part, but what is art without spontaneity? Besides, I think we've all had our fill of dreary topics. Anarchs, petty squabbles, crucifixion, blah, blah, blah. Everyone who's anyone is going to be there."
I'll show if I have the opportunity, but I can't make promises.
She's already drifting off to reel in another invitee. "Don't be left out in the rain, Silas. Social capital is king." You hear Key call out for another interviewee from the side room. Looks like he's not quite done yet. There should be enough time for one last conversation. Okay. So we've got... Let's go ahead and look at the rest of this. So Luca... Which one was Luca again? I do not remember who Luca is. We've got the Tremere. We've got Jordan. You know, who's our Malkavian friend. We have Corliss. Who should we talk to, guys, do you think? My thought is either Jordan or Corliss. Or excuse me, Jordan or Luca. I'm trying to remember who Luca is. I can't remember for the life of... Oh, yeah, never mind. Luca is our sister. Never mind, I remember that now. Yeah, I think we'll roll for it.
We'll let fate decide, huh?
So blue will go with Corliss, red will go with Jordan. Blue, Corliss it is. Corliss might want to debrief me before everyone leaves. I go to the front of the room and speak with my sire. By the time you reach your sire, she's already left the lectern and retreated to a small refreshment table covered tastefully in white lace. She turns to watch your approach while gently spinning a crystal champagne flute filled halfway with crimson liquid. I must say, she remarks, that your sister chose a remarkable meal for the evening considering her time constraints. Daughter of a local cabinet minister, I believe. A distinctly sanguine flavor. Luke has developed quite a knack for acquiring just the right morsels. We have 3 or 4 of them in the back. On tap, as it were. She proffers you a glass which you gladly take. You hadn't realized how hungry you were until you were close enough to smell the tantalizing aroma.
Thank you,
you say.
Thank your sister.
Corliss pauses to scan the crowd before speaking again.
What is your take on this business, Silas? You saw these events with your own eyes. I believe you made the right choice by accompanying the sheriff and your little friend, though I do wish you'd been able to send me word before the council was called. Let me be blunt.
She lowers her voice.
Do you believe Vivian is telling the whole truth? She's clearly confused. I don't think she'd fake that. It makes her look weak. If she were lying, she'd use the lie to her benefit.
Corliss frowns.
Well, you are right about one thing. Her actions have made her appear weak. More so than I've ever seen her. She was hoping to come off strong, but she failed miserably. What I would do to get inside that head.
Something in her tone makes you think of your earlier conversation with Ophelia and Kashif.
I spoke with Mr. Salek and Ophelia not long ago.
Corliss sighs.
I saw you. And what of it? I doubt the assassin had anything pleasant to say to a child of mine. He wanted me to tell you he was attacked in his haven by mortals during the day. A pity, Corliss says, although it appears he made it through unscathed. But this is more than just threatening notes. I'll have to start taking him seriously. More's the pity. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Silas.
Alicia squeezes past you to take a glass from the table, the diva's perfect curls bobbing and dancing inches from your face. Corliss clears her throat.
We're in the middle of a private conversation, Miss Gray. Oh, of course, Alicia replies with questionable sincerity. I had something to mention, but it can wait.
Before you can ask her to elaborate, she's waded back into the crowd again, a single glass flute perched delicately in her right hand, its carmine contents placid despite the speed of her long-legged gait. Corliss grunts.
I've met ferals more polite, and yet someone she always manages to win us over in the end. At least she runs a clean Elysium.
She shakes her head.
Arundel has a history with Alicia?
Corliss waves a hand dismissively.
Nothing untoward, child. There were favors given and repaid. She had a burning desire to own the Rideau Club, and Arundel put pressure on its owner. In exchange, it became Elysium, and now we all benefit. I can't fault either of them for that particular exchange. I merely dislike how our prince fawns over her. It's...
She looks down at her feet for a moment.
Unseemly.
She puts her empty glass back on the table and looks back toward the door where you last saw Luca.
Ah,
she says finally.
There she is. Chatting up Bucard of all people. Might sure to have interesting choices of companions as late.
She eyes Jordan.
And what is it that you appreciate about the seer? I find her attitude grates like sandpaper to the temple, and yet she's often at your side.
What's our status with our Malkavian friend, with Jordan? Yeah, We said that our Malkavian friend was the only one that we were going to be, like, pleasant to. I wouldn't tell my sire that, though. Absolutely not.
I keep trying to shake her, but she's tenacious. Irritating, but surprisingly loyal and useful.
Corliss manages a smile.
Well, that's quite a relief. I'm pleased that you've managed to play the game so well. You almost had me convinced that there was a genuine friendship between the two of you. A working relationship that you can turn to your benefit, however. That's something worth keeping.
She notices a tall, well-dressed man in the center of the room, twisting an idle finger around the chain of an intricate gold pendant around his neck. She motions him over to join you. You don't think you've met him before.
This is Trevor Haight. We're working together to patch things over with the Tremere who left Ottawa after Arundel welcomed the Banu Hakim.
The man reaches out a white-gloved hand, clearly expecting you to shake it. I shake his hand genuinely. I'd do this even if Corliss wasn't watching my reaction. Well, that's a good grip, Trevor says with what seems like a genuine smile. Your sire's told me a great deal about you, Silas. I raise an eyebrow. I'm in Ottawa by request of Prince Annabelle of Quebec. We're hoping to come to an arrangement regarding our clan's repatriation. I ideally wish to work with Henrik Lang again, but there's an ongoing project we have on the proverbial kettle in our chantry, and while Henrik needs my expertise, I find myself in something of a predicament. A predicament indeed. The Tremere put themselves in a difficult position by leaving Ottawa in a fit of pique when Arundel welcomed their old enemies, the Banu Hakim, into the city. Are they looking to save face despite returning while Kashif is still welcome in the city? Or are they still hoping to force the Vizier out? Yeah, that's the Tremere's thing. They're enemies with everyone, damn near.
Well, if you want to return, I'm sure you're welcome to do so, but I doubt the prince is going to take back his offer of sanctuary.
I'm afraid the truth is more complicated than that, Silas. Prince Annabelle has arranged a sanctuary for the Banu Hakim in London. Ontario, of course, not the United Kingdom. She is willing to discuss it with Mr. Salic in person, with full assurances to Prince Arundel that he will be returned unharmed.
And why would he go to London when he's already been accepted here?
A domain of his own. A place where he can build a new home and start again, free of his crazed blood god in the Middle East with the blessings of the closest Camarilla princes. It's worth at least considering. That actually brings me to why we're speaking. He looks to Corliss and she nods impatiently. Your sire wishes for you to deliver the invitation. She fears... I fear nothing, Corliss cuts in. I am simply aware of the tension between Mr. Salic and myself. One could say we got off on the wrong foot. If you would speak to the man, Silas, I'd be grateful. Prince Annabelle's offer has the full support of myself and Arundel. You can assure the Vizier of that.
Of course. I'll speak to him before the council is adjourned.
Excellent, Trevor says, sticking out his hand again. The warlock sure is laying it on thick. Either that or he's quite the nervous tick. If he throws it back in our faces, then no Kindred will be able to say we didn't make an attempt. Oh, sorry. If he throws it back in our faces, then no Kindred will be able to say we didn't make an attempt at diplomacy.
Should I ask him to speak to you when he's made his decision?
You ask Trevor. Or Henrik Lang, he knows where to find us. Do you have any particular interest in ancient texts, history, and... I can't pronounce that word, so you guys see it.
Well, I find them fascinating, but I don't know much about them.
Trevor beams. Oh, I haven't seen such interest in ancient knowledge from a Nosferatu in quite some time. I happen to know that Miss Gray intends to invite each of us to a gathering tomorrow night. If you attend, and do make sure you say hello. I have something that may be of interest to you.
Come, Trevor,
Corliss says, taking him by the hand.
I have someone else to introduce you to.
She inclines her head to you.
Appreciation for your assistance, Silas. It's been noted.
You decide to pass on Trevor's message to Kashif immediately. There's no time like the present, and you have no idea when your next chance to speak to him will be. He and Ophelia are still in the same corner of the room that they've occupied since Key began his interviews.
Kashif,
you greet the Vizier as pleasantly as possible.
I have news to pass on from my sire. Do you know the Tremere, Trevor Haight?
I know of him.
Well, he and Corliss wanted me to pass on a message from Prince Annabelle of Quebec City. She wishes to extend an offer to the Banu Hakim, a sanctuary in London, Ontario, where your clan can build a new home, free of Tremere influence. Corliss supports the deal and gives the blessing of Ottawa's Camarilla.
Both Ophelia and Kashif's eyes widen alarmingly. Malkavian's with surprise, but the Vizier, he's angry. They offer to give us a token city, as if we were invalids in need of their charity. And of course their campaign of harassment is clearly designed to make such an offer more appealing. Outrageous!
Such a small city too, Ophelia growls. It's an insult.
You continue, desiring nothing more than to be done playing messenger.
Well, Prince Annabelle offers you safe passage to her domain to discuss the particulars. She guarantees your safety for the duration of the trip.
Kashif sneers. It's almost worth the travel to tell her what I think of her offer in person. I think that's an excellent idea, Ophelia says. An insult like this should be answered in kind. I will discuss this with the warlock myself, Kashif says to you. Thank you for delivering the message. Know that I do not hold its contents against you personally. He cracks his knuckles. I desire a moment alone for contemplation. We can speak more at a later date. Good evening, Silas. You decide not to push the matter and bid farewell to the fuming Banu Hakim. You doubt there would be much benefit in further discussion, and he's clearly no longer interested in idle conversation. But one thing that we do need to keep in mind, when we went to the crime scene, for lack of a better term, the Ventru Primogen's house, we couldn't hear anything, which is a telltale sign of quietus, which is an Assamite or Banu Hakim ability. But I think it's more blood magic now, but still. Right now, and it was kind of subtle, I consider the Vizier to be our #1 suspect. Key emerges from his interview room clutching a notepad and pen. He does little to hide his grim expression when he informs the council that they can leave and be about their business. Thank you for your time and patience, he says. I may need to contact some of you for follow-up questions, but for now you're free to go.
Free to go,
you hear Picard growl.
As if he had the right to stop us.
You take a cramped elevator cheek to jowl with the other kindred, each eager to leave as quickly as possible, and not willing to wait a second longer to be quit of Elysium and the prolonged council. A large analog clock on the wall above the ground floor exit shows that it's 2:37 in the morning. On an average night, you wouldn't head home so early, but it's late, and you're mentally exhausted. Oh, that's true. They discussed that Ophelia might be trying to learn some blood magic from him. Ooh, spicy. As you pull your heavy hood up to cover your face from the mortals, Bleck scurries up your pant leg and into your waiting left hand. You open your bond of mental communication.
Did you learn anything?
You ask. The rat chitters through the bond.
Sire Corliss, she is speaking with the bad-smelling warlock after the others leave. The one in the red robe. So soft. It tickled my whiskers. Someone new too. Large hat. White gloves. Was there anything you could pick up on? Were they friendly? On good terms? Sire Corliss seemed angry, but she's always angry. Remember when she kicked me?
Anger flows through the bond and you reply mentally. Bad-smelling warlock.
The red-robed warlock. You've seen him before? The one you watched in the church that one time. Lang? He's named Kindred, yes.
Bleck says impatiently. You're glad you sent Bleck to get to know most of the powerful kindred in the city, watching from afar. He may not be able to understand spoken language, but identifying individuals you've already named and pointed out is easy enough.
Lang, bad-smelling warlock, same thing. Cheese?
You procure a few cheese curds from a small bag in your pocket, and Bleck takes them greedily.
Now what exactly were they doing together? Bad-smelling warlock had many words. Sire Corliss less angry then, and warlock seemed afraid after. He pointed to the ground, and his eyes got all big.
You pause to think for a moment.
What did Large Hat do?
Bleck finishes up his cheese and begins to clean his face, knocking crumbs from long, delicate whiskers.
Large Hat very quiet. Don't think Sire Corliss likes him much. Anything else?
You ask.
No, I left before they found me. You did good work, Bleck.
Out to the street. You can also be bribed with cheese curds. Gotcha. You exit Elysium out onto the cold and surprisingly crowded streets, your face wrapped up tight in a scarf, lest anyone give you an odd look. The long nights of winter make going about concealed significantly easier. Sometimes it's better to keep a low profile when surrounded by unknown mortals. The air tingles against your nose, that undefinable smell that heralds the coming of snow. Not long after your embrace, the prestigious club used for Elysium had burned to the ground during a raid of attacking Canites from Montreal. The club had since been relocated here to the 15th floor of a massive plate glass building on Bank Street, a hive for activity for kindred and kind alike. The first floor of the building is home to a large bank, and through its front floor-to-ceiling glass walls, you notice Key fighting with a bank machine. You pause mid-step as he throws up his hands in frustration, takes his card, and slams the door open, stalking out into the street where he notices you watching. He clears his throat awkwardly. It's not working, he says unnecessarily as he shoves his wallet back into his pocket and adjusts his hood to fit closer around his face, avoiding stares from nearby mortals. Even without being able to see the sheriff's deformities, you notice passerbys giving him a wide berth as if an invisible sense of wrongness radiates from him, repelling mortals wherever he steps. Says my balance is overdrawn, but that can't be right. He's frustrated and unusually candid. Now, the thing about it is, in 4th edition VTM, which was the redone World of Darkness that was between 3rd edition and 5th edition, new WOD, Nosferatus could look completely normal, but they would just give off a very, very unappealing vibe or aura around them. So what Key's going through is very similar to that. And I believe that Nosferatu can do that in 5th edition. They can have that as a weakness instead of, or maybe a merit, that they still look normal, but they still give off that really weird vibe.
Sounds like sabotage. You should check your records.
Key joins you on the sidewalk as he wraps a second scarf around his face until all you can see are his eyes and mane of long dark hair. They're toying with me, He mutters as you trudge away from Elysium. I'd be sure it was the Anarchs if they had the wherewithal to pull off something like this, but there's no way those Neanderthals would be able to pull something like this off in our city. The local Camarilla controls the banks. This is intimidation. Someone wants me to back off of my investigations. Why is he telling you all of this? You wonder if he trusts you more after the Anarch raid, or if he thinks you're too low level to cause him any trouble, making you a safe sounding board.
Well, what if you went to Luca? From what I hear, she's incredible with business and online finance.
Key's eyes crinkle up above the tightly wrapped scarf. That might not be a bad idea. He turns into a small parking lot where you recognize his old silver sedan. If the sheriff doesn't want to stand out, he's chosen the right vehicle for it. He waves you over to the passenger door. I have a favor to ask of you. You shift uncomfortably. There it is. The catch. Opening up to you about his troubles must not have been random after all.
And what do you need?
You try to come up with an excuse to duck out of the obligation, but your calendar is blank. Key's request hadn't been in order, but it's never wise to make yourself the subject of the sheriff's ire. You open the passenger door and sit down. The car smells like old leather. You find the scent is surprisingly comforting for some reason you can't quite put a finger on. He sits beside you and starts the engine. First, I wanted to thank you for helping me keep my word to Officer Dova. Vivian would have drained him dry if it hadn't been for your quick thinking. I should have known better than to think she just let us take him away willingly after she suffered so much blood loss in the staking. Dova's a good man and an exceptional officer. He's done more to help uphold the Masquerade as a mortal man than many Kindred have. He shakes his head, changing the topic abruptly. Alicia invited you to her exhibit tomorrow night?
She seems to assume that I'll show up whether I confirm or not, you say. I didn't even have time to respond before she moved on to the next guest.
You should attend, Key says. I've got a line of information that could help us locate Arundel.
Why me?
Truthfully, because there are very few Elder Kindred who I can trust, and you have a vested interest in the case. If the prince never reappears, the Primogen will tear your sire to shreds. If that happens, do you truly believe that you'll survive the night?
Now, that is a good point. I wish I could refute it, but I'm not sure I can.
Glad to see you're coming around, he says. You might just survive what's coming yet. I have a small digital forensics team working for me over at the station. They've tracked back a number of sensitive transactions to Alicia Gray's accounts.
Alicia? She can't be that threatening, she's just a socialite.
If that's all she is, why is her firm poised to take over more than half of the prince's business interests? It's filtered through shell companies and offshore holdings, but it's her. Ready to drop the hammer as soon as someone seizes Praxis.
Key, where are we going?
The sheriff flips on the car lights, illuminating the first flakes of new snowfall drifting down from the night sky. We're going to see just what Alicia is up to. He chuckles as he puts the car in gear and pulls out into the street. Think you're up for a little breaking and entering? Yes, absolutely. This is what we are trained for with our stealthiness. So I am completely okay for some breaking and entering, especially with the sheriff, where I know I won't get necessarily in a lot of trouble for it. So good deal, guys. That was chapter 4. We had to jump into the politics of Ottawa and get to talking with some people. And why I think we kind of struck out with the Banu Hakim, we were able to ingratiate ourselves a little bit with the Nosferatu Primogen. And with this exhibition, who knows what's going to happen, so I'm kind of curious about it. Gory, thank you very much for that raid. We were just about to end the stream and raid ourselves. But I do want to thank you all very much for tuning in. We are going to jump back in with Chapter 5, Exhibition, in the next stream. So I do want to thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you. If you haven't followed the Twitch channel, please do so. I try and stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays with random times in between. And if you're watching the replay of this on YouTube, I have a link to the Twitch channel in the description below, a link to Parliament of Knives' game page on Steam. I highly recommend you get the game yourselves, and also a link to my Extra Life page where I'm raising money for my local children's hospital via the awesome Extra Life charity. So check those out if you feel so inclined. Like, share, subscribe, you guys know the drill there. And we'll see you next time. Later days, everyone.